Hello, bookworms, and welcome to the Book Up. I'm your host, Verdell Walker. Books are my passion, and my mission is simple: to help you find the books you'll love and dodge the ones you won't. Each week, I review a book in just 15 minutes. By the end, you'll know whether it belongs at the top of your TBR pile or is destined for a DNF. Think of me as your personal book matchmaker. So come on in, get cozy, and let me give you the Book Up. Before we get into it, I want to shout out Kat PJ, who left me a review that I screenshotted immediately. They wrote, "Such an easy, enjoyable listen. Great insights, great host, and makes me excited to pick up new books." Thank you so much, Kat PJ. This is exactly the kind of thing that keeps me going. If you want to be the next person I shout out on air, please go leave a review. Okay, now let's talk about this book. Today's book is The Adventures of Mary Darling by Pat Murphy. It's a historical adventure fantasy published by Tachyon Publications. The print edition is 320 pages and is also available as an ebook. Here's the publisher summary. Mary Darling is a pretty wife whose boring husband is befuddled by her independent ways. But one fateful night, Mary becomes the distraught mother whose 3 children have gone missing from their beds. After her well-meaning uncle, John Watson, contacts the greatest detective of his era, but not that great, Mary is Sherlock Holmes's prime suspect in her children's disappearance. To save her family, Mary must escape and attempt to have her locked away and to travel halfway around the world. Along the way, her allies include a Solomon Islander whose village was destroyed by Western civilization, a Malagasy woman on an island that is run by women, Captain Hook and the crew of the Jolly Roger, and of course, Nana, the faithful dog and nursemaid. Real quick, if you're enjoying the Book Up, I would love it if you took 2 minutes to leave me a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I am on a mission to hit 50 reviews, and I'm not there yet. So every single one genuinely counts. Okay, back to the book. So Peter Pan was never one of my favorite tales as a kid, but I'm always down for a retelling of a classic story, especially if it's told through the lens of previously overlooked characters from said story. Also, Sherlock Holmes was never a favorite of mine either, with the notable exception of Wishbone. He played Sherlock in 2 episodes. In 1995, The Hound of the Baskervilles and A Scandal in Bohemia were adapted into The Slobbery Hound and A Dogged Expose. So like many a millennial, I got a lot of my classic lit from Wishbone. That precious doggo was as far as I got with Sherlock stories until the 1999 animated series Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd Century, and then later the CBS series Elementary with Johnny Miller and Lucy Liu. I also liked the Enola Holmes movies on Netflix with Millie Bobby Brown. So as you can tell, I got a lot of my Sherlock through adaptations. All that to say, when I saw this book in my local library, I didn't think I was the prime target. I was originally turned off by the cover. It looks like Microsoft clip art from the 90s, and I passed by it on several visits until one day I just had this feeling about it and I went back for it. So color me surprised when I read a few pages and I was hooked, pun intended, and totally engrossed in the story. This book was not at all what I expected, but I mean that in the best way. It's a really smart historical fantasy that re-examines some classic literature through a feminist and intersectional lens. So let's start with what I loved. First of all, there are some excellent characters in The Adventures of Mary Darling, and it's mainly those characters who were ignored or misrepresented in the source material. So the protagonist, Mary, she is this sweet, simpering thing in the movie, and she starts out that way here, but she gradually uncovers the tough, smart badass that she used to be as the book goes on. And she goes on this quest to return to Neverland to find her kids. So there's a quote that I love in the book that says, "She was pretty, she was charming, and she had a hidden darkness." Somebody put that on a pillow, okay? Mary is part of this secret club of women who learn how to fight with umbrellas and other feminine weapons like hat pins. And Mary herself and so many of the other female characters in this book really illustrate Murphy's theme about the secret world of power that women inhabit that men are completely unaware of. And they use that secret world to push back against patriarchy and Victorian restrictions in their own ways. So in flashbacks, we see that Peter brings Mary to Neverland to be the mother to the lost boys, even though she keeps insisting to him that she is not a mom. While she's in Neverland, she meets my other favorite character from this book, Sam. Sam is from the Solomon Islands. Pirates steal his cousins and send them to plantations. Yes. And he himself is sent to England, where he has a horrible time. He's bullied and ostracized and just has an incredibly difficult time there. He knows firsthand how evil the British Empire is. Peter tricks him into going to Neverland too, just like Mary, and he becomes a lost boy. That's where they meet each other and they begin this wonderful found sibling relationship. I don't want to say too much more to avoid spoilers, but Sam deeply respects Mary in a way that even her husband doesn't, and he is her top ally. Second, this is a really subversive take on both Peter Pan and Sherlock Holmes, as well as a very clever and clear eyed exploration of the histories of women and people indigenous to lands that Britain claimed for its empire. It's an adventure story, a rescue quest, but it's also an indictment of colonization. Murphy spends a great deal of time, attention, and care delving into the corrosive effects of colonization on the colonized, both those affected by Britain as well as by the United States through the Native American tribe that is featured in the book. Peter Pan is also not this charming, lovable, magical scamp here that we're used to. He is a self absorbed, murderous kidnapper and the leader of a child army. Neverland is also not a paradise in this book. The Lost Boys deal with malnutrition, near starvation, injuries, insects, all kinds of terrible stuff. The key theme that Murphy hits on here is that adventures are often neither comfortable nor safe, no matter what Peter Pan says. So it's a real subversion of that childhood fantasy. Peter Pan is oblivious to this, and whenever one of those lost boys dies, he just kidnaps another kid to take their place and gives them the dead kid's name. Like, he is an awful, awful being in here. So let's talk about Sherlock. He is still a brilliant detective here, but he has huge blind spots, and he is not the star of the show. He's more there to be the representative of the male-dominated society that Mary is rebelling against. He is relentlessly dedicated to logic and reason, and that really renders him incapable of entertaining the theory that Mary's kids literally flew off to Neverland. In the end, Watson, who is Mary's uncle in this book, is the one who is able to accept that the world may be stranger and larger than he believed. Also, Sherlock is a cokehead in this book, a huge cokehead, which I found to be hilarious. Speaking of men, one of the better dudes in the story is the character who will become Captain Hook. He is very interesting. And Pat Murphy has put a very cool backstory of how he lost his hand into her book. Now let's move on and talk about my dings, the things that I didn't really care for. First, there's a lot of info dumping in the story Bookworms, and there are many times when it really slows the pacing and momentum of the story. One example is there's a battle scene where Pat literally stops the action to give us the origin of the grenade. It's like Murphy really wants you to know all the historical research she did and couldn't bear to let any of it go to waste. So I am a writer. I get it. I get the impulse, but you really have to kill your darlings. You're another pun intended. Don't get me wrong. Murphy, she expands upon the original story here with some very empathetic and well rounded historical context and narrative. The descriptions of residential schools for Native Americans and how they may have played into the myth of Tiger Lily in Peter Pan was especially provocative. But a lot of that historical research often came at the cost of forward momentum in the story. I also thought that the ending was a bit of a letdown. It felt like Murphy ran out of gas a little bit and that she felt like she needed to wrap things up, kind of like V.E. Schwab did in Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil last week. The final showdown between Peter Pan and Wendy could have been a lot more satisfying, in my opinion. So my final rating for The Adventures of Mary Darling is 4 out of 5 stars. While I loved the smart feminist reimagining of Peter Pan and the care that Murphy takes with her overlooked characters and their histories, I knocked off a star for the heavy info dumping and the ending that didn't quite deliver the knockout punch I was hoping for. That said, this was still a thoughtful, subversive adventure story and very much worth the read. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of The Book Up. If you want to pick up today's book, check out the episode description for shoppable links. I'll earn a commission if you make a purchase, so your support helps keep the show going. And if you're enjoying The Book Up, please take a moment to leave a rating and a review. It makes a huge difference in helping other book lovers find the show, and I read every single one. Don't forget to follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode, and come say hi over on Instagram at The Book Up Pod. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you next time on The Book Up.